Smiling brightly, hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today, we're diving into a topic that might make your stomach churn: the 7 foods most likely to cause illness. From leafy greens to everyone's favorite summertime treat, we'll be uncovering the surprising culprits that could be lurking in your fridge or pantry. So, buckle up and get ready to learn about the hidden dangers in your diet and how to avoid them. Let's keep those tummies happy and healthy. When it comes to food safety, there are a few things you should always keep in mind. First, always wash your hands thoroughly before handling food. Second, make sure to cook food to the proper temperature. And third, be aware of the foods that are most likely to cause illness. Eggs are a great source of protein, but they can also be a breeding ground for bacteria. If you're eating eggs, make sure they're fresh and cooked properly. Avoid eating eggs that have been sitting out at room temperature for more than 2 hours. And when cooking eggs, make sure the yolks are firm and the whites are no longer runny. Mayonnaise and egg sauce are both made with raw eggs, which means they can also be a source of bacteria. If you're eating dishes that contain mayonnaise or egg sauce, make sure they're made with fresh ingredients and served immediately. Avoid eating these dishes if they've been sitting out at room temperature for more than 2 hours. Fish and seafood can be a healthy and delicious part of your diet, but they can also be a source of food poisoning. This is because fish and seafood can contain bacteria, viruses, and parasites that can make you sick. To avoid getting sick from fish and seafood, make sure to cook them to the proper temperature. The FDA recommends cooking fish to an internal temperature of 145 degrees Fahrenheit and shellfish to an internal temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit. In addition to the foods listed above, there are a few other foods that are more likely to cause illness than others. These include raw sprouts, unpasteurized milk and cheese, deli meats and hot dogs, leftovers that have been sitting out at room temperature for more than 2 hours. By following these tips, you can help reduce your risk of getting sick from food poisoning. Chicken is a delicious and versatile protein, but it can also be a breeding ground for bacteria if not handled and cooked properly. Raw chicken can be contaminated with Salmonella, Campylobacter, and E. coli, which can cause food poisoning. To avoid getting sick, it's important to cook chicken to an internal temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit. You should also avoid cross-contaminating other foods with raw chicken by using separate cutting boards and utensils. Raw vegetables and fruits are a healthy and refreshing snack, but they can also be contaminated with bacteria if they're not washed properly. Bacteria can grow on the surface of fruits and vegetables, especially if they're not stored properly. To avoid getting sick, it's important to wash all fruits and vegetables thoroughly under running water before eating them. You should also avoid eating fruits and vegetables that have been damaged or bruised. Greens, onions, and lettuce are all leafy vegetables that are often eaten raw. However, these vegetables can be contaminated with bacteria if they're not grown or handled properly. Bacteria can grow on the leaves of these vegetables, especially if they're not washed properly. To avoid getting sick, it's important to wash all leafy greens, onions, and lettuce thoroughly under running water before eating them. You should also avoid eating these vegetables if they're wilted or discolored. Meat is a good source of protein, but it can also be contaminated with bacteria if it's not handled and cooked properly. Raw meat can be contaminated with Salmonella, E. coli, and other bacteria that can cause food poisoning. To avoid getting sick, it's important to cook meat to an internal temperature that's safe for consumption. The safe internal temperature for different types of meat varies, so be sure to consult a food safety chart for specific guidelines. You should also avoid cross-contaminating other foods with raw meat by using separate cutting boards and utensils. In addition to the foods listed above, there are a few other things you can do to reduce your risk of foodborne illness. These include washing your hands often with soap and water, keeping your kitchen clean and sanitized, storing food properly in the refrigerator or freezer, Thawing frozen foods safely in the refrigerator or under cold running water. Avoiding eating food that has been left out at room temperature for more than 2 hours. By following these tips, you can help reduce your risk of getting sick from foodborne illness.